All right, let's talk about the broadcast command. This is really good if you're creating, say, levels in a game. Like you accomplish something and you want it to go to the next level without having to type in something or click somewhere. This kind of automatically makes something happen. Or you defeat a boss and you want some screen to come up to show you won the game or something like that. So something where the program kind of automatically reacts to something you do. So here's a really basic, kind of almost boring thing I've created, but it's good elements for a game. So I've got this cat that's going to follow my mouse anywhere it goes, and the objective's pretty straightforward: just touch the other objects. Now, as soon as I touch that present, it's going to change colors briefly to show I touched it, and then something else shows up. And then when I touch that, it changes color briefly to show I touched it, and then it says "good job." All right, so real straightforward and easy. But I didn't have to. The program reacted to what I did. I didn't have to actually go through and click on anything else. Or so I'm gonna get y'all to make a maze here coming up pretty soon. Where when you get to the end of the maze, it goes to the next level, and until you beat all the levels of your maze. So let's go to a blank screen. And I've already put a cat on here. I changed the size to 30. I just want it to be kind of small because if it's huge, it's pretty easy to touch your other objects, and it's not much of a challenge at all. So I always start with my green flag, and we'll probably end up coming back to these sprites and adding more as we go. Just kind of be aware of that. But the first thing I want to happen, I want to be able to control this thing with the mouse. So I'm going to put a forever loop under here so it's always looking for what the mouse is doing. And then motion. Go to, and I'm going to change random position to mouse pointer. So when I hit the green flag, that cat will follow my mouse anywhere it goes. So now I can control it with the mouse. All right. So now I need some other object as like a goal. So how about an apple? Yeah, just to have something. So it might take a second. Should pop up here pretty soon with the sprites. There it is. Okay. So when the green flag is pressed, now, do I want the apple to show up immediately? Yeah, probably. So eventually it's going to get hidden. I might wait for a second to show you that part. So when I touch this apple, I want it to change color briefly, and then I want it to disappear and go on to something else. So I'm going to put it in a forever loop so it's always looking to see if I've touched it. The danger, if you don't do the forever loop, it might run through and check and see if I'm touching it, and then move on to something else. And then I touch the apple and nothing happens. So forever loops are really good for games. So it's always checking to see if you've met the condition. And the condition is if I touch that apple. So I'm putting an if in here, and you got this little hexagon looking box. Those are for sensing commands. And I'm going to go to sensing. And if it's touching the cat, so I need to change that to cat. So if the apple is touching the cat, all right, so one thing I want to do is change color. So I'm going to go to costumes, and for the apple, I need a second color. So I'm going to duplicate it, and let's make it turn yellow maybe. So it's going to turn kind of yellow when I duplicate it. So when I touch it, it'll change to that color. So I'll go to looks and switch costume to Apple II. I want it, it'll be like a split second if I don't tell it to wait. So let's go to control, wait. Tell it to wait like maybe half a second. That should be long enough. And then here's the new thing. We're going to broadcast a message. Okay. So to me, in my mind, that Apple's level 1. So I'm going to call the message level 2. You can call it anything you want. Just name it something that's going to make sense to you. So when level 2 is broadcast, then level 2 is what it goes to. The broadcast thing didn't make a lot of sense to me in the beginning. I thought that it was supposed to be words on the screen. What it is, it's like a background message the computer's looking for. And when it hears that message, quote unquote, hears it, it reacts and does something. So basically, once it hears that level 2 command, then another object's going to pop up on the screen, and that's where we're going to go. Now, one thing too, I've changed the apple to the yellow. I want it to be red in the beginning, so I need to go to looks and switch. This is when I click the green flag. I'm just going to make it the regular apple. So let's test this out and see what happens. So it's red when I start, then it turns yellow, and there's a message being broadcast now, but there's nothing happening when I broadcast that message. But so far it's looking pretty good. Um, I do want the apple to go away after I touch it, so I'm going to pull up a hide, and let me clear that up so you see it better. So after it has switched to yellow, it's waited a half a second. Message goes out, the apple goes away. So let's try that. Let's make sure that goes away after it changes color. All right, good. All right, so I'm happy with that. Let's pull up a different figure. I used the banana last time, but we'll do that again. So there's the banana. Um, so when the green flag is pressed, now I don't want it to show up until level 2 shows up. So I'm gonna go to looks, and I'm gonna hide it right away initially. And then we need it to be looking to see if the cat's touching it. So then a forever loop. We also, I guess I'm getting ahead of myself here. When the message level 2 shows up, that's when something happens. So I'm going to events, and when I receive, and this is the message, and level 2 is the message that Apple sends. All right, so when I touch the apple, this level 2 message goes out. So when the banana receives that message, now's where we want it to do its thing, which is the same thing. It's gonna change color if I touch it, briefly be like that, and then disappear, and then it's gonna say you win or something. So forever. So it's always looking to see if this happens. If, and I got the little hexagon, so I need to go to sensing. Also, operators can go in the little hexagon, and everything's kind of shape coordinated on Scratch, so you can tell what commands can go in a spot. But I want to know if it's touching the cat. So I'm doing touching, change it to cat. So if this banana touches the cat, then that's when we're going to change color. Then it's going to disappear, and then it's going to say you win. All right, so let's get it to change color. Let's switch. Well, get ahead of myself. I don't have a second costume yet. So I need to go to costume. Let's duplicate it, and let's make it some other color. Like, let's see. Let's make it kind of red. A lot of times things flash red in the game when you touch them. So pretty bright, but that's okay. We'll make it flash red for a second. If you wanted to get really creative and make it flash a little bit, we could maybe try that. Let me get it to work first, and I might show you all that one too. All right, so if I touch it with the cat, I want it to turn red. I want it to wait briefly, so we'll say wait a half a second so that we at least see that it's red, doesn't just disappear right away. I'm going to broadcast a message called "You win" because this simple game, is going to be over at that point. And then something else will happen when "You win" shows up. But after all this happens, we want to hide it. So go to looks and hide. Right here inside the loop. All right. Okay. Now, I don't know if y'all noticed this. There is a flaw, but if we run the program, you'll see it. So let's go. No, my apple's not showing up. So let's see how that's not happening. The same flaws in both parts, I believe. So the apple was hidden last time I ran it, and I never told it to show back up. So this is that part I mentioned and moved on from earlier. When the green flag is clicked, we want the apple to show up. So I need to get show under the looks tab. And somewhere up here near the beginning, let's just do it right away, make it show. All right. Another similar issue with the banana, but you'll catch it. So let's just run it because it's debugging these things, troubleshooting is part of the game. All right, so the apple shows up. When I touch it, it should turn yellow, half second, then go away. And then the banana shows up. At least I want it to. So I'm going to stop the program, go to the banana. When the green flag is clicked, I don't want it to show up. That's true because I want the apple there. But once it receives that level 2 message, that's when I do want it to show up. So I need to get a show there. So then the banana shows up until I touch it, and then it hides. So let's just check that and make sure it's working. All right, turns yellow, waits, banana shows up. It was red right away. So I'm showing you all these troubleshooting things. I never told it to turn back to yellow. So let's stop it. When it shows up, let's also make it be the yellow color. So I'm under looks, switch costume, and I called that bananas. And if you don't remember what you called it, go to costumes, and there they are labeled, and you can give them good appropriate names. You can call it yellow banana, red banana. That'd be a smart thing to do. All right, let's test this. All right, turns yellow, goes away. So maybe we make them go to certain positions so I don't accidentally touch it right away like that. So let's go to the apple. Let's make it go to somewhere in the right-hand corner up here. So I'm gonna drag my cat so I can see 150, 120. That sounds pretty good. So I'm gonna put it at 150 for X, 120 for Y. I'm gonna do basically the opposite for the banana. I'm gonna put it down at negative 150, negative 120. That way when I touch the apple, I have to move across the screen to get to the banana. So again, I'm just doing this so that I don't just automatically touch both and it blows through without ever seeing what's happening. So you can do whatever you want. You can even do a random position if you'd like to. But I just assume somewhere around this area should be good enough. And that's negative 150, negative 120. That's somewhere in here. All right. So I'm going to run it and see what happens. So the apple shows up in that corner. I touch it. Then the banana shows up. It should turn red and then go away. All right. Last thing I want to have happen is just like a you win message comes up because I've got this broadcast you win. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up another costume because you can have text just show up as a costume, and that's usually the easiest way to make text just show up on the screen. So let's open up a sprite. Choose whatever you want. I'll choose Abby here. She's right at the beginning. I don't need all these other copies because I think she dances around, and I really don't even need her. So I'm going to highlight the pointer, highlighter, deleter, or actually just hit delete. And I'm not even going to call it Abby anymore. I'm going to call it You Win. So costume is now called You Win. I'm going to do a text box, and I'm going to type in You Win. We'll make it all exciting. And I'm not super carried with that purple color, so I'm going to make it maybe like a blue. You can make it whatever color you want. You can put backgrounds back. You can do whatever you want to it. I would like to see it kind of more centered up with the, again, this little crosshair thing. That's the XY coordinate of your sprite. So I always like to move stuff to be centered up. See the little crosshair and the W? I like to center those up. So that way when I give it a coordinate, because sometimes with games, you want to be really specific where you put stuff on the screen. So it's nice if I can have everything line up the way I want. And I can always grab that and move it from here too. So I can move it wherever I want. All right, so the costume says You Win. I'm going to make that a little bit bigger too. So let's highlight it. Got all of our normal font stuff up here. I take that back. I don't have font size, but what I can do is hit the arrow, select it, and just grab the corners and make it really big. All right, so again, I'm lining up. There was that little plus was right there in the W, and then there's that little target looking thing. I'm just lining those up. So that way it's centered up in my screen. That looks good to me. All right, so the only thing left is I want this to show up when the banana has been touched and that You Win message goes out. So green flag. Do I want to see it when I hit the green flag? No. The You Win comes at the end. So I want to hide it. And that's pretty much it. When I touch the green flag, it just doesn't show up. All right, now events, because I want it to show up when the You Win message comes out. So when I receive, this is down at the bottom of events with the messages. When I receive, change it to You Win. All right, I want it to show up. And That might be it. Let's see what happens. And you can always just run stuff and see what happens. And if you like it, leave it. And if you want to add more, add more. So apple should touch and change color, then disappear. Banana shows up again, and UN shows up. So there we go. So that's how you use messages. They're a good way to make the computer change from one thing to another on its own.